We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up
and try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit. Hi everyone, it's LJ and I'm here with another side dish episode. This side dish episode is going to be me cooking along with Rick making Pozole Verde or Mexican stew. Now, I am a huge fan of Mexican food. I absolutely love it. It's not something that I've known how to cook or cooked a lot of myself. And that is mainly because we just don't have the same access in the UK to Mexican ingredients and Mexican flavorings as you guys do in the US. It's a bit of a travesty, if you ask me, because it's just, people like Mexican food here. There are Mexican restaurants, they do exist here. And there's a very well-known chain called Oaxaca, which people go to. It's very, very popular. But in the local grocery stores, your average grocery store, you cannot pick up ingredients like tomatillos or poblano peppers or hominy corn. Some of the stuff that Rick uses in this recipe is just not stuff that's readily available to the same extent that it is in the US. So I think that is a tragedy because Mexican food is delicious. I was first introduced to Mexican food when I lived in New York over a decade ago. And I think obviously because America is that much closer to Mexico, there are just way better provisions for cooking Mexican food and cooking decent Mexican food in America. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's not as prevalent over here, because we just don't have the same population to make it kind of viable. The other reason why I was drawn to this recipe is I absolutely love stews and soup. It's one of my favourite type of meal. When it's done well and it's done right, there is nothing more flavourful or warming or comforting than a nice big bowl of beautifully rich, flavourful, brothy soup. And I just think anyone who doesn't like soup or says they doesn't like soup, I'm just like, you haven't had a good one, guys. You need to have a really decent soup, one that's got a layered, decent stock that's your base layer of flavour, one that is, you know, you've got some really cool, interesting toppings and flavours to layer on top. Just one that is cooked with love. So obviously when I saw Rick's video, I was like, Mexican stew, Mexican soup. I've never had that. I've literally never had that. And I just thought it would be an interesting challenge for me to try to source the ingredients in the UK and see if I can recreate some of that authentic Mexican flavour over here. So let's get started with me watching his video again. So I'm going to press play. It's pozole time. Ever since I've watched this video, I have continually just been randomly screaming, it's pozole time, when I walk through life. Much to the chagrin of my husband, who is like, shut up. It looks so good. I'm so excited. So does Rick. Rick looks so good. Look at his nails. So Rick's telling us that pozole comes from the name of the corn that's featured in the stew, pozole corn. I believe in the US is something called hominy corn, which is not something we have readily available over here. And so to make this, I've actually had to order it off of a specialist supplier from Amazon. So Rick tells us that this recipe is Chris Morocco's recipe, which is interesting. What the hell am I going to call this episode? Can I call it LJ Makes Rick's Pozole Verde if it's not Rick's? LJ Makes Chris's Pozole Verde via Rick? Who knows? Making the broth with the chicken. Oh, Chris is there in the background. Oh, I'm so glad he's featured in this if it's his recipe. So they're using aromatics like onion and garlic. Can we just take a moment for Rick's nails? Seriously. Stunning. I don't know how he doesn't get more chipped nails. I can't cook with a manicure and expect it to last. Do you think he gets shellac? Chris has just said, where's my pupusa? Which is a different video. It's quite funny. They must have filmed it around the same time. Okay, so Rick's describing that in Mexico there are these establishments called Pozolerias, which are like soup shops, and he says it's almost like banchan, which is a name for in Korean cuisine, where you have lots of little small side dishes. And what he's saying is they serve you up the soup and you've got all these little side dishes of toppings that you can add in, which to me sounds a lot like ramen as well, which I absolutely adore. Which is great because that, I guess, means you can customize the flavor based on your preferences for toppings. So all your toppings are like herbs, dried chili, cabbage, onion. He makes a note that he doesn't want to get any color on any of the veg because it's a Pozole Verde. So I guess he's really trying to not make that soup brown, give it a brownish tinge from any color. He's really trying to retain a green color, so you just sweat the veg, you don't brown them. He is roasting some tomatillos, which look delicious, some poblano chilies, some cubanelle, and some serrano chilies. They're all green, obviously, because it's a verde pozole verde, and he's roasting them in the oven. Now, I have not been able to get all of those ingredients. I haven't been able to get the cubanelle peppers. I haven't been able to source them, but I have then when I checked the recipe that's online, it does say you can just double up on the poblanos. Serrano chilies are pretty readily available over here, but tomatillos and the poblano peppers, again, I had to order from a specialist Mexican supplier. Now he's giving the aromatics a stir. His onions have got a little bit of colour on, so I guess I don't need to be too worried about colour at that stage. So they're creating their broth by using that whole chicken, poaching it in that water, and with the aromatics in there. It sounds like it's going to be delicious. I'm very excited. He's just got annoyed with Gabby because she's being loud in the background. She just said, "You want me to talk louder?" And he went, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what we all need." And I sympathise with Gabby as a fellow loudmouth. I say, if you can't handle the volume, get out the kitchen, Rick. So he's shredding that chicken just with his hand. Oh, the green vegetables are done. He's pulled them out. Oh, close up on Andy preening in the background. Checking out his reflection in the bain-marie. So Rick's just given us some more insight to Mexican cuisine. So the pozole rojo, which is the red pozole, he says that's the spiciest. And the verde is a brighter version, which is interesting. Rick, after de-seeding and de-skinning the vegetables, he has, the chilies, he's chucked all of the green veg into a blender and has blended them up. I don't have a blender in the same sort of type of kind of stick blender that the Test Kitchen has. I do have a food processor, so I'm hoping that will be enough, because my only other option at that point is a NutriBullet, and I don't think that's going to be big enough. But once he's blended up all his vegetables, he is now pouring them into the broth that has been left behind from the chicken. So this is one of Rick's interventions into Chris's recipe. He has told Chris that instead of just chucking your hominy corn straight from the can into the soup and cooking it, Rick feels that the recipe benefits from roasting off or toasting off the canned hominy to get rid of the kind of metally can type taste. I'm not a massive corn fan, to be honest. I'm starting to become one this summer because I've been eating some of it from the farmer's market, but I haven't cooked a lot with any type of corn, fresh or canned. So I don't really know about the canned flavour that he's talking about, but I can believe him when he says that toasting it is better. So let's give it a try. I will be doing what he recommends. I cannot stop looking at his nails. They're so good. Don't you just want Rick's hands to just stroke your cheek gently in a loving way? Anyway, the other thing I haven't mentioned is Rick's apron. It is stunning. It's absolutely the most colourful thing I've ever seen. He really is a ray of sunshine. So Rick is saying another big tip that they developed for this recipe is instead of just chopping up cilantro at the end and sprinkling on top of the pozole, they blend it up and then add it to the pozole as like a liquidized puree, not only does that get the flavor in there, but it also makes the pozole this amazing bright green color, which is just looks fantastic. So I am excited to do that. And now, God, that's an amazing green color. He's adding that back into the stock. That really has brightened up the color of that stock, because before it was kind of like a sludgy green, and now it's like bright St. Patrick's green, you know? Oh, so this isn't in the recipe, but he has added this as a suggestion in the video, which I took on board because I love it. He's got some tortilla chips there because he likes crunch. So I've got some cantina style tortilla chips as well that I'm planning on sprinkling over and crumbling over. He's also got red onion chopped up and lime and cilantro as well. Oh, delicious. He says when you make it, freeze a quart for emergencies for when you have a hangover. I'm totally doing that. So there you have it. So I guess now I've found out how to make it, I need to get in that kitchen and get going. Okay, we are in the kitchen and it's pozole time. Let's try not to say that too many times. The first step in Chris's recipe is to heat the oil. So I need a quarter cup of olive oil in a large heavy pot or Dutch oven over medium. And in that, I need to cook the onion and the garlic. So I'm going to chop those first. If you need the recipe to what we're cooking in these side dish episodes, we always link the BA recipe in the show notes. So check that out. So I am chopping a yellow onion. Anyone got flashbacks to LJ makes Andy's bolognese? Let's hope this one doesn't make me blub like a baby. It's pozole time. Okay, right. Oh God, I've already got problems. I've missed the bin. Do a nice chop on these. My manicure is not looking nearly as on point as Rick's was. For that, we can only be sad. Don't cry, don't cry. We're only at the beginning. Okay. That was a stingy onion, guys. So this recipe calls for 6, count them, cloves of garlic. 6! That's music to my ears. Normally I always add more garlic than the recipe suggests, but I think this will be quite enough. 5, 6. Just come back in 3 hours. I'll eventually have peeled 6 garlic cloves. Come on, get naked. Right, there we are. They are all peeled. So those garlic cloves need to be sliced. I cannot tell you how excited I am about cooking Mexican food. I don't do it very often because I just find it really hard to get the right stuff over here. Like we have fajita, burrito, ready cook, like with a ready cook sauce kit that you just like add meat to. We have those. Like you can cheat it. You can get pretty far with like just our regular chilies. It's just like you don't get the same complexity of flavours because we're not quite using the same. It just doesn't taste, it never tastes as good. So let's see what this does. I'm excited about my haul from the Mexican supplier online. Right, so oil in. Smells good, even as it's just gone in. Something about onion and garlic, man, does things to me. What's 425 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius?
425 degrees Fahrenheit is 218.3 degrees Celsius.
220. Let's preheat my oven to 220 because I need to get that ready for all my green veg. Now the recipe does talk about poaching the chicken for about 50 minutes and then you can let it cool down and chill overnight, but I'm not going to be doing that. So I'm trying to kind of double up on as many steps happening at the same time as possible to kind of shorten the cooking, the total kind of time to being able to eat something, because we're having this for our dinner tonight. So I don't want it to take all evening. Oh, I can hear the onion and the
garlic starting to sizzle. But yeah, I would say that is a tip. If you see a recipe that's like, I'm never going to make that because I never have that much time to cook something, always see if there's a way you can double up on steps and do certain things at the same time. So if it says like cook something in the oven and then after that's happened, chop something else, maybe you can do that whilst things are in the oven or whilst something else is cooking. I have to say BA recipes are usually quite good for that. That smells delicious. Also smells like the beginning of my bolognese. Hashtag never forget. Hashtag milk. We're about halfway through the cooking time that it recommends for the aromatics, and they're not I've not got them on a high enough heat to catch any colour at the moment, which is what Rick said that ideally you were after, although I did notice that when it got to the end of his cooking time, his had gone a little bit kind of caramelised around the edges. So I'm not going to be too concerned if that does happen. But yeah, I think it just helps with maintaining the green colour. I'm just Instagram storying me making this too. Justine has just DM'd me on Instagram telling me that she's proud of me. So I feel validated for attempting Mexican cuisine. Okay, so my buzzer's just gone off for 12 minutes. They do not look as caramelised as Rick's were, but I think that's because Rick had left them a little longer because, you know, test kitchen problems. They're looking very tender, which is what the recipe wants. So I'm going to add the spices. It calls for 2 teaspoons of ground coriander, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, and half a teaspoon of dried oregano, preferably Mexican oregano. So I'm putting my coriander in first, and then we toast these spices for about a minute or so. So I'm trying to get them in as quickly as I can. It did say you could use regular oregano, but Rick in the video said that Mexican oregano is preferable because it just has a slightly different flavour to Mediterranean oregano or Greek oregano, which are the 2 types that are more readily available over here. So I went to the effort of tracking down Mexican oregano. You can't get it in grocery stores over here. And I have to say, having never come across it before, it definitely smells similar to regular oregano, but it has got this kind of lemony note to it that is very, very different to normal oregano, regular oregano. So I'm really pleased that I've tracked it down because I think it's going to make a difference to the final flavour. That's a minute of toasting time. Looking nice and brown. So I'm popping in my chicken. I've got a lovely, beautiful free-range chicken here. Oh, I guess I should cut the string off because, should I? No, I won't actually because it'll keep it together. Now I'm just going to add some water. So it needs 12 cups of water. I might not have enough room for 12 cups. No, I'm definitely not going to have enough room for 12 cups. I will have enough to submerge the chicken though. Right, so I've got 10 cups in there. I think that'll do. If it isn't completely submerged, you can turn it once or twice. Okay. So bring to a simmer and cook uncovered and reducing heat as needed to maintain a very gentle simmer. So let's work on that. So I think I need to turn it up initially to get it simmering. I think this is going to be so delicious. I cannot fucking wait. Okay, that is simmering now. So I'm going to start to move on to dealing with my green veg, which looks very appetizing, all spread out in front of me. Now I'm going to get my scales out because I want to make sure I've got the right amount because I think I might have too much of some of these. My scales are fighting with me. They're telling me that they're unstable. You and me both. Right, okay. My poblanos look a lot smaller than the ones that Rick had in his video. So I'm a bit concerned that just having 6 poblanos won't be enough. I've actually got 12 here. So I'm wondering whether I just roast all of them and fuck it, see what happens. And the other thing it asks for is 3 serrano chilies, which I actually forgot to get, and my husband has gone out to try and find them. So we're waiting for him to come back, and then I can shove these in the oven. Now, what it says to do is just spread them on a baking sheet and roast them. No oil, nothing. And we'll chuck them in the oven. Chicken, meanwhile, it's coming up to a simmer. I'm trying to turn it down. Also trying to turn it so that the top of it... Oh shit. Don't panic, everything's fine. Please ignore that noise. Just as I turned the chicken, water splashed out and my electric hob didn't like it. So right, I need to start timing this chicken.
50 minutes, starting now.
Okay, so that's my total time, and I'm going to set another timer for 15, the manual timer for 15 minutes so that I can remember to keep turning it. Right, meanwhile, back to the green veg. I've never dealt with tomatillos before. Did not know they came in this weird husk, so I need to husk them. What are tomatillos? Are they just green tomatoes? I don't think they are. I mean, they look like that, but I think green tomatoes are a different thing. What is that? These are bizarre. I need to look more into the history of a tomatillo because I know nothing about these guys. Tomatillos husked. I'm going to Google what the heck they are. Tomatillos. The Mexican husk tomato. It's a plant of the nightshade family. So they have a tart flavour, apparently, and they get used in salsa verde, in all kinds of stews, soups, salads, curry. The purple variety of a tomatillo is sweeter, so that gets used in jams and things. And they can be dried to enhance the sweetness, and they sort of taste a bit like dried cranberries, but with a hint of tomato flavour. This is so interesting. It's pozole time. Okay, now I'm just waiting for Russ, so do. Come on, Russ. Seriously, where the hell has he gone? Has he gone to Mexico to get chilies? Come on, Russ. Literally just staring out the window waiting for him to get here. Where are you? You know one thing I'm really, really annoyed about right now? Because cooking is a time when you really kind of let yourself be one with how you're feeling. Well, I'm annoyed that Dave Grohl played a secret gig in a club around 5 minutes walk from where I am right now. He played a secret gig last night. And you may not know this about me, but he's the love of my life. Who the fuck thought that it was acceptable to allow Dave Grohl to play a show without telling me? I mean... Oh, Russ is home. Russ has returned with not serrano chilies because for some reason nobody's got them. But he has brought back the Turkish equivalent, which are green, mild chilies. So I'm just going to go with that. It is what it is. We always knew Mexican food was going to be a challenge for me, so I'm just going to pop them on my roasting tray. And now these go in the oven. It says roast, tossing once or twice until their tomatillos even are tender and the peppers are browned and collapsing. My green veg are in the oven. My chicken is continuing to poach with me turning it every 15 minutes. And that is going to be it for another half an hour. So stay tuned for the next in this thrilling installment of Pozole Time. Pozole Time. I am back and things have been happening while I've been away. So the chicken has poached and I have removed it from the broth and it is sitting on the side kind of cooling down. I just want to double. I did check it while it was in the pan, but it's kind of hard to see. Yeah, it's definitely cooked, so that's good. The timer has just gone off for the veg in the oven also. Ooh, interesting. My tomatillos have smooshed down quite considerably. They've just dissolved, basically. But my peppers are looking pretty good. Yeah, things need to be browned and collapsing. These have definitely collapsed. So I then need to split open the chilies and the peppers and discard the stems and the seeds. They are looking really nice and roasted. I've removed all of the chilies and peppers onto a chopping board so that they can cool down away from the hot baking sheet. Now, whilst they're cooling a little bit, I'm going to drain the hominy. It's a huge, big-ass can, but it's the right size for this recipe, which called for 2 15-ounce cans. So, I'm opening the can. Oh, jeez, it's not coming out. It's so tightly packed. Ugh. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's all falling out now. This is literally pozole time because that is what pozole means, corn. It's very pale looking. It's not like the yellow corn I'm used to buying or getting in a can. Spread hominy in an even layer on reserved baking sheet and toast, tossing once until lightly toasted, very fragrant, just beginning to brown around the edges of the baking sheet. Discard any skin that can be easily peeled off, otherwise just leave it on. Okay, that makes things easier. Food processor ready, so I can just chuck them. Just already put in there. His skins are coming off quite easily, actually. I'm not being too thorough with it because he's just said that it doesn't actually matter too much. I'm just being more thorough about just getting the stems off and the seeds. They smell really sweet, actually, these poblanos, which is nice. There's like a roasted, caramelised kind of vibe coming from them. One thing I've just realised is I forgot to turn these in the oven, but it doesn't seem to have made that much difference. So, aha, that is the timer to toss the corn. I'm sticking a little bit to the bottom, but not too bad. I'm spreading it out again. Hasn't caught on any colour yet, but might give it a few minutes. Continuing with my pepper skinning. Something quite satisfying about peeling skin off of things. Does that make me a psychopath? I don't know. Did anyone ever, when they were like a kid, and you paint the child-friendly like glue, like the white glue that then dries clear, did you ever do, as a child, did you ever paint that on your like hands and stuff, wait for it to dry and then peel it off? I used to do that all the time. I used to get told off for it as well. But it's just like, it's just really satisfying. You know, in Friends, where it's like, I'm Jerry and I'm disgusting. I'm LJ and I'm disgusting. And this one is also coming away very easily. And that is the last pepper skin. Everything that should be in the food processor is in the food processor. Let's have a look at that. It says puree until smooth. That's looking pretty smooth to me, but I might just give it a bit of glass. It then says stir the puree into the broth. It smells great. It's looking very similar to, it's looking, it smells really nice and sweet pepper, like peppery jammy, nice. It's looking exactly like Rick's, in fact. Oh, for God's sake, it's the corn. And corn is not looking brown. It's not catching at all. Although, I guess Rick's didn't look brown. It seemed to have caught a little bit at the edges, but okay, I might give it another 2 minutes. It's pozole time. I'm so excited. I need to shred a whole chicken. I need a bowl for this. Oh my goodness, the corn is happening. It's all happening. What am I doing with this corn? Scrape it into the pot. And then I have to simmer the broth for 20 minutes, which gives me time to shred the chicken. It's like they knew what I needed. What I needed was time, and I bloody well got it. Right, I need new oven gloves. Okay, all this hominy is going everywhere. Just pick up all the bits that fell on the floor and put those in the bin so that the cats don't eat them. Maybe someone went down my top. Who knows? Find those later. I might try a bit, you know. I have no idea what this is supposed to taste like. Oh, it's spicy. Not crazy spicy, I don't think, but it's definitely spicy. Maybe I put too many poblanos in. Let's get some forks for shredding. Shred, 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 shred your chicken. I actually really think poaching a chicken is underrated as a way of cooking chicken, because it's good for you because it doesn't use any extra, it's just literally just putting it in some broth, so you get all the nutrients from the broth in there as well, but it keeps the chicken so moist. And you can just do it with a whole one, you can do it with chicken breasts, you can do it, I've done it quite a few times in different ways. Can you hear that pozole simmering? Oh yeah. I've discarded the forks. I'm going in with my hands. It's the easiest way to shred a chicken, let's be honest. I'm definitely saving these bones to make chicken stock. It's one of my favourite things to do when you roast a chicken. I'm really looking into nutrition at the moment because I've had a few things not right with me recently. Looking into kind of all things gut health and working with a nutritionist, she has enlightened me as to the benefits of bone broth, and it's actually really delicious. Some people don't like it on their own, in which case you'd put it in like a soup or something and have it that way, but I actually really like it on its own. So yeah, never throw your bones away, ever. So there's another 10 minutes left on the timer for the broth to kind of meld together with the pozole, which means I need to spend some time prepping for serving, because there are a bunch of little fun accoutrements that need to go on top of this thing. So first things first, red onion. So 2 cups of cilantro leaves plus more for serving. So one of the things that I have learnt from BA, I think it was Carla doing a recipe this week, when you need to chop herbs, don't just roll your knife back and forth and pile them up into different piles and chop and then restack them and then chop again, because you don't want, she's like, that causes your herbs to go all black and bruised, and they're quite delicate. You don't want that. I am very much guilty of chopping around like a madwoman. And so I've just chopped that cilantro for topping very, very delicately. So the pozole broth with the corn in and the pureed peppers is looking very green. What I'm going to do is ladle half a cup of that broth into a blender. I'm putting that in with my cilantro that I put in the food processor, ready to go. Alexa, stop. No, she can't hear me. What a bitch. Right. Alexa, stop. That looks like a puree. Oh my goodness, the smell. That is some cilantro for sure. My goodness. Now I'm going to stir the shredded chicken into the broth. God, this pan I have, this Dutch oven, is only just big enough for this shit. So I'm just going to let that heat through a sec. The tips of my fingers are very tingly. I think from handling those peppers, this is why Rick wore gloves, isn't it? Can't believe that. That's so funny. I thought it was because they were hot, as in temperature. Of course not. I'm trying to wash them off. I was just handling them like they were bell peppers. They really weren't. Grab this cilantro puree, tip that in, which hopefully is going to make it a really amazing green colour. It's looking pretty green already, to be honest, but it's sort of like a yellowy green. Oh yeah, that is from, okay, yeah, green to, oh yeah, green. It's like Emerald City green. It says now divide it up into bowls and serve. So I guess now's the moment of truth. I am notoriously bad at dishing stuff out with a ladle. It's so sloppy. I don't understand how you stop it dripping. It looks great. So I'm going to top it with some red onion, extra cilantro, and some corn chips. I'm trying to get a good Instagram picture at the same time. This is hard. Right. Let's wipe that down. Oh my god, I'm such an Instagram cook now. This is what this podcast has done for me. I'm like, everything looks too dirty. Okay, so I've topped it as Rick did. I'm going to take a little bite. I'm worried about how spicy it is. Ooh, that tastes good. So it's got heat in it for sure, but cooking it, when I originally tasted it, it hadn't had its like extra cooking time to like meld all the flavours together. It hadn't had the corn added, hadn't had the chicken added, hadn't had the cilantro puree added, which I think knocks back a lot of the heat that I got from that first taste when I was like, oh my god, this is really spicy. The toppings are cute. I love them. Like that extra crunch you get from the tortilla is delightful, but also the longer it sits in the bowl, it sort of mushes as well. And the broth is just really, really warming and comforting. And I would love to have this in a pozoleria in Mexico, because I'm sure it's 1,000 times better than what I've done. But actually, considering that I didn't have 100% authentic ingredients list, and I was doing my best with what I had, I think this has worked out super well. The corn is there, but it's not like in my face, which is nice. It's got a kind of nutty flavour. I think that's from the toasting. I am delighted to have a massive batch of this to stick in my freezer.
It's been a week or so. I have eaten the pozole, I've let it settle, I've ruminated on the process in my head, and I've invited Meg to come and join me for a little debrief. Hi, Meg. Thank you for helping me.
Hello, happy to be here.
I couldn't really pick anyone else from the PAL gang. Pod Appétit ladies, still trying to make it happen. I couldn't pick anyone else to join me for this episode because you and I are really like the only soup mega fans, I think.
Yeah, Amanda pretty clearly tapped out on soup. Not one of her favorite types of food in general. And
no.
Yeah, if you listen to our episode where we recapped this video, you and I were pretty gung-ho about this recipe, more so than the other ladies.
I think for Justine it's more difficult because I know she used to eat meat, but she doesn't eat it anymore. So the chicken aspect is like not going to be easy for her to talk about so much. Although she did a great job with my bolognese episode, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, my pozole. What do you want to know?
So I know in preparation for this episode, you were saying that you had to special order some ingredients because, as I'm sure our listeners know by now, you're in London and that's pretty far from Mexico.
It is pretty far.
So how'd you source the ingredients, or were you able to?
It was difficult. So there were some key ingredients, I think, that make up the flavour profile of a pozole that were hard to find, that I couldn't get in just a regular grocery store. So tomatillos is one. I did actually go to the farmer's market today and noticed there were some there. Yeah, exactly. So that's the first time I've seen them like somewhere easily accessible to me. But obviously with farmers markets, you can't guarantee that they're going to be there and when they're going to appear. So I didn't have that for when I actually made them. I had to order them online from a great store, like online UK-based store called the Cool Chili Company. And they specialize in Mexican ingredients. And so it was a real find for me because I was like, oh, finally I can actually get some stuff that is what I'm supposed to be using for this recipe. So I got my tomatillos from them. I got the Mexican oregano from them. The chilies were the other thing that I struggled with. So I believe the recipe called for a certain type of chili that I didn't have, and I couldn't find, and even Cool Chili Co. didn't have it. So I had to order a different type of chili that I was just kind of hoping had the same flavor profile, but I'm not an expert, so I don't know. So I did poblano chilies as well, and I did quite a few of them because I wasn't sure how, like, the quantities were kind of hard to figure out online. Like, I think the recipe called for a certain measurement that it wasn't describing on the online website, so I couldn't tell like what yield I would get from ordering. So I was just like, I'm just going to order as many as I can and see. Other thing I had to order special was the hominy corn, which obviously is a really big important ingredient in pozole because that's what pozole means. The poblano chilies I used, I don't know if that was the right type of heat. I mean, the color was right, and that was one of the things I was really going for because I didn't want to ruin the green color. It looked great, but I think it was actually more spicy than I thought it was going to be. I don't know why. I know Mexican is spicy food, so I was expecting some heat, but it was a bit like, oh, this is way spicy. Like, I would probably, if I was modifying it, wanted to put some like sour cream or something in there to like take it down a bit because my mouth was kind of burning quite a lot after eating it. And then the tomatillos, I have never had one. Knowingly, so I don't know what flavor to expect. And I have to say, when I followed the instructions to the letter, put them in the oven, and they just kind of like melted, like they dissolved, like all the juice came out of them, and I was just left with these like skins that were just sort of there flopping about. And I was like, is that supposed to happen? I don't think that's supposed to happen. I had it at the right temperature. I did it for the right amount of time. The chilies that cooked at the same time seemed fine. So I was just a bit like, oh, maybe that went a bit wrong. I don't know. And I wasn't sure how that would have affected the flavor profile because I guess having never had it, the pozole, I had nothing to base it on. So I was just kind of it felt like cooking blind, if you know what I mean.
So did you end up putting serrano chilies in there, or was that what you subbed? Oh, okay. Yeah,
so serrano chilies you can get in the UK. They're like we would say bog standard. Like if you just go into a shop and pick up some green or red chilies, serrano chilies are what you get. There was like this bitter undertone to the whole dish and very, 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 very spicy.
So extra spicy poblanos. Did you end up getting any of the tomatillos that you saw at the farmer's market today?
I didn't today because I've not got a Mexican dish planned.
I'd just be curious to know how other tomatillos compared to what you use in the recipe, because it almost sounds like you got bum tomatillos or something.
Yeah, well, they were really big ones. Like the ones I saw at the market were quite tiny, like almost like cherry tomatillos, like little tiny ones. And so because I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, those are like little baby ones compared to the ones that I got from the company. I tried to put as much of it in the blender as I could from scraping it off the sheet pan, but yeah, it was a bit like, oh.
I find tomatillos to be sour, but pleasantly so. I actually really like tomatillos and roasted tomatillo salsa. I actually tried to grow some in my garden last year, but it turned out to be not a disaster. Actually, the plant was huge and beautiful, and it had so many flowers, and I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to get so many tomatillos. They started growing. They looked great. And then I went to feel the husks, that they have on the outside. And I was like, oh, I wonder how these are growing. I squeeze the husk and there's literally nothing inside. There's like maybe a pea-sized little shriveled up tomatillo. And I'm just like, what happened?
Oh no.
So that didn't work.
Yeah, because the ones I saw at the farmer's market were like strangely small as well. And I wonder if it's just there's like a secret to growing them that we don't know, that big food know about.
I think I need to grow them in direct sunlight. I think it was too shady, but I don't know. That's my guess anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So even with your subs and the sort of melting tomatillos, did you like it?
I loved the fact that you can do all the little toppings in little dishes. I thought that was so cute. And I've actually got a ton of soup, a ton of it left over in my freezer, and I've frozen it, and I'm planning on inviting my friends that I do cookbook club it with round to have like a pozole party, where we can all, like, they can try it, because they were very curious about what it was like and stuff, and quite impressed that I'd managed to source Mexican ingredients, because we all like Mexican food, but it's hard to do here. Yeah, it'll be interesting to get their reaction, and I think it's a good thing to make for like a really laid back, like, have your friends over situation, because you can put like get all your little dishes out with the red onion and the, you know, tortilla chips and the coriander and whatever you want to put on the top, and like people can just mix and match, and it's like really fun, and you're just ladling out soup for everyone. So really it was sour, so maybe that is the tomatillos coming through, but as you say, not in an unpleasant way. I think it was more that I wasn't sure if that was right, but it sounds like it is from what you're saying, so that's good. The corn I was really surprised with, because we don't get hominy corn in the UK that I know of, or it's not readily available, so I wasn't sure what it would taste like. And I really liked the roasting of it in the oven, because it really did bring out this kind of toasty flavor that really came through in the soup and made it feel really like comforting. It was almost like there were like mini bits of bread in there, even though it wasn't bread. Like it had that kind of toasty kind of flavor, and it was softer to eat than I was expecting. I was expecting, and maybe that's because it's canned, so it's very, very hydrated, but I was expecting it to be more crisp, like other types of corn. I don't know what the other type of corn is. And the chicken, the fact that the chicken is poached essentially in the stock liquor, it's so and I know people hate this word, but moist and like juicy, and I really love the little chicken, kind of shredded chicken in there. I thought it tasted really good. So in all, I really liked it as a soup. Now that I know what to expect, I would definitely make it again, because the yield, you get tons of it, you can freeze it. There's like 8 portions at least in that yield, so like there's loads of it, especially if you're only a small household. Yeah, I really liked it.
So you kind of already answered my next question, since you said you would make it again. Rick says in the video that he doesn't like steppy recipes unless there's a big payoff, so you would agree that this one had a big enough payoff?
Yeah, I think my initial kind of shock at it being not what I was expecting has kind of died down with some time and distance. So now that I'm like, oh, I know what that's going to taste like, I know what to expect, I'm going to eat it, I'm like, yeah, I think it's a really wholesome meal. You know, when he said at the end of the video, like, it's a good thing to have in your freezer if you've got a hangover.
Yeah. Can you confirm?
Yeah. You know, when you're just like, I've not eaten it after a hangover yet. That's sure to come. But I do think that it's just one of those meals, like, you know, when you feel like you just want a hug, or, you know, you're just feeling a little bit under the weather, like not super under the weather, because I think the spiciness would be too much, but like if you've just got like a cold or something and you just want to feel like nourished, like I think it's a good dish for that.
A good comfort food.
Yeah, it's like that's some of my favorite types of food, I think.
Well, your pozole party sounds awesome. When I was in London, I can confirm that I didn't see much Mexican food available, and I had to laugh because the one place that I did see was advertising, quote, juicy burritos. And I'm like, I don't know if juicy is really a selling point for burritos.
No, it'll be all soggy. Ugh.
One thing about this video that I failed to mention in our recap episode is that I loved when Rick called the cilantro addition into the soup as a Morocco wizard move. And
yes,
I was just imagining if that were on It's Alive, what sort of graphic would have accompanied that.
I did feel like a wizard when I did that bit, because I was like waiting for that bit, because before you put that kind of whizzed up coriander puree, I guess, in the soup, it has got a green tinge to it, because of obviously all the veg you've used is green, and but it has got that kind of slightly browny, muddy kind of colour to it, which it's not like unappetizing, because you know it's going to be delicious, but it's not that bright, vibrant green that looks so good. So yeah, when I did that bit, I was like, this is absolute genius, because it's just suddenly immediately like something from Oz, like it's like, ding, I'm green. It's so good. Yeah, you're a wizard, Chris.
I feel like I have to get in my own it's pozole time. Okay, it's out of my system now.
Yeah, I will definitely greet my friends at the door with, it's Pozole Verde. And just throw soup at them.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit, a Bon Appetit fancast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Hi, it's Carolyn.
And Vanessa.
From Not Another X-Files podcast.
We're the female-led X-Files podcast you didn't even know you were looking for.
We've got plenty of opportunities for nostalgia, conspiracies, forbidden romance, and plenty of laughs.
It's true. Come on over to our place in Vancouver, Canada, and revisit your favorite 90s sci-fi TV show.
You'll be glad you stopped by. You can find us on all your favorite podcast spots.
And on the web at notanotherxfpod.libsyn.com.
Bye.
Bye.
Music for this promo by Purple Planet.